show, you like professional wrestling, you love the Mark Hoke Show, Sunday mornings, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. right here, 101.5 FM, KDAWN, and again, streaming live on the Odyssey app. My good pal Mikey Domagala, man, this guy is busy. NBA Buzz. Of course, the draft coming up tomorrow, and lots going on today. Thought we were going to have a big 3-team trade, but that looks like it has deteriorated. I'll get an update from Mikey in just a sec, but Nuggets also busy working around, even though they got that NBA title under their belt. They're working deals there with the Indiana Pacers, and I'm just wondering, if when it's all said and done, if the Knicks are going to come out of this thing looking okay, but Mikey's going to kind of clue me in here. Of course, we've got the G League Ignite team. Scoot Henderson, one of the guys that could go in the top 2 or 3 as far as the NBA draft. We know who's going to go number 1 with Victor Wembanyama from France. It looks like he'll, for all intents and purposes, unless something catastrophic were to happen, will be this newest member of the San Antonio Spurs. But without further ado, I welcome in my good buddy, Mikey Domagala. He's a young kid, and again, if you haven't heard him on SportsX Radio, he's been on several times throughout the last few years, but a great success story. And now at the veteran age of 23, Mike?
24.
20. Good God, man, you're getting older. Okay, I thought I was the only one getting older in this world, but wow, the big 2-4, man. All right, easy to remember. The old Say Hey Kid Willie Mays wore number 24, but look, always love getting you on, and the great thing is you're right there in the Empire State. I can always get you on because midnight's about when Mikey gets rolling, man. I mean, you're a night owl, and I always love that because you're ready to go. It's not like I get, a lot of times I'll get the guys, and I try to get them in the first hour if they're on the East Coast because I know it's already after 11 o'clock, and sometimes you can feel them dragging. But every time I get you on, man, there's always plenty of energy to go around. Mikey D, great to have you back, SportsX Radio, pal. How's everything going for you personally?
As always, Ken, I appreciate it. And listen, I got to tell you, I'm rocking and rolling, wheeling and dealing right now. The Kristaps Porzingis trade to Boston did just happen. Marcus Smart to Memphis, Tyus Jones to Washington, along with some picks. Man, I'm working.
Wait. Okay, all right. Now you got to slow this down. Wait. Marcus Smart went to Memphis?
Marcus Smart to Memphis.
Wow. Okay, so it's all right. So it's changed. Kind of go. Okay, so first let's go back to what it looked like was going to be with Brogdon going to, I believe, L.A., and it was a 3-team deal with Washington, Boston, and L.A., the Clippers, but that did not pan out. What was that proposed trade? I know Porzingis was in that. Boston, either way, was going to get Porzingis.
Yeah, that trade was sending Malcolm Brogdon to the Clippers, Washington not getting much, Danilo Gallinari, Marcus Smart, and the 30th pick, and of course then Porzingis to the Celtics. But that fell apart about an hour ago because the Clippers are concerned with Malcolm Brogdon's shoulder, which he hurt in the playoffs/finals. I don't think it would have spilled over till next season, but, I mean, with the team with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, you got to be worrying about injuries. So that's why that one fell apart.
All right, so the actual deal now, run it down again. So the Celtics do end up getting Porzingis after all.
Yeah, so I'm going to leave out the draft compensation because it's a little confusing right now. But players that are confirmed, Kristaps Porzingis to Boston, Marcus Smart to the Memphis Grizzlies, and Tyus Jones to the Wizards. So Grizzlies kind of doing a little point guard swap, a little bit more of a veteran in Marcus Smart. And, Tyus Jones is really good, and he's off to Washington, and Porzingis is probably the best third option in the league right now in Boston.
All right, and of course, with Memphis, we know the 25-game suspension handed down there for Ja Morant. So I'm sure that played into Memphis getting involved. But kind of, I mean, I know you're just gathering all this, and it's going to take you a little while to review it. But Porzingis, look, Boston, Marcus Smart, to me, is a key part of that team. I mean, defensively and offensively, he's not the most consistent guy from behind the arc or on the offensive side. I mean, one game he'll get 25, next game he'll get 11. But I still think was a key piece for that puzzle. I know Boston looking at, okay, if we do get out of the East and we got to go head-to-head with Denver, you've got to be able to have a couple bigs that you're going to be able to throw at, Jokic. So I'm sure that played into their thought process there with Brad Stevens. Kind of sum it up for me real quick because, that's wow. I'm surprised that they parted with Marcus Smart. I really am.
Me too. I mean, I'm thinking the sense of that is somebody's back is against the wall. It's Marcus Smart or it's Malcolm Brogdon. Brogdon coming off Sixth Man of the Year. Smart, he's good. A little inconsistent, some antics behind him with the flopping, but a great defender, of course, former Defensive Player of the Year. So something has to give there. Porzingis' deal was running out tonight at midnight, and Washington was either going to, let him walk or got to get something for him. So they joined forces in this 3-team deal. I'm pretty surprised as well, Ken. I didn't think Smart was going to go. Personally, I didn't think they would get it done because I didn't know what other team would join in on that. Tyus Jones is one of the most underrated point guards in this league. His assist-to-turnover ratio is absurd. Even LeBron James tweeted about it a few weeks ago about Tyus. So I'm pretty surprised over this whole thing. I'm surprised Memphis is going to change their game plan with Ja Morant, out for 25 games. Marcus Smart leading a new charge, while Tyus Jones last season did a tremendous job without Ja when he was injured and whatnot. Just surprised with this whole thing.
Yeah, I am just like, you just like brought news to me that I had no idea was going down. And when you said Marcus Smart, I was like, wait a minute, what happened to Malcolm Brogdon? And I know the shoulder injury, but I was also surprised that, that he would be traded as well. I mean, you're talking Sixth Man of the Year, a guy very, very solid, very consistent, great defensive prowess, of course, playing his college ball at Virginia. Has always been good on the defensive side of the ball. But, yeah, that is one that's just going to, take a few days for me to kind of kick back and go over everything after the draft is said and done and then start looking over these rosters. Boy, it's going to be a lot of fun. But there is no doubt, there's no secret, and we've known about it since the draft lottery in San Antonio, of course, the fortunate ones getting that number 1 overall pick. Victor Wembanyama from France. He's a young kid, great wingspan, and really enjoyed throwing out the first pitch at Yankee Stadium. And then he said he enjoyed riding the New York subway. And I'm just like, all right, stay there for a week, young man, and don't go on there with 10 bodyguards and see how much you enjoy it. It could be detrimental to anybody's health there. But nonetheless, kind of sum this young man up as far as what you've seen. I know his regular season just ended a little bit ago, but the ceiling is high for this kid. But, his body, is one that's it's slender to say the least. He's got a nice touch for a big guy. He's got a great wingspan. But the NBA is not for the faint of heart, and you're going to get pushed around. And I'm not just talking, guys like Jokic. There's going to be some other guys that are going to be pushing you around. So you're going to be able to use your athleticism and your wingspan, and you're going to get those block shots and whatnot. But there are going to be those physical nights where you're going to say, like, all right, this could be a little bit more than I thought it was going to be after playing overseas for a while in your home country.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, his first matchup with Giannis Antetokounmpo, when he comes down the lane slamming into his chest, it's going to be a wake-up call. But I think he's going to be unbelievable in this league. I could see him averaging 20 in his first season for the sole fact of his mid-range game, his height in the paint, and just the inability to stop those long, long arms. So he'll be at the free throw line a lot. He'll be hitting jumpers. I think as any other rookie usually does, his field goal percentage won't be where we think it, will be right off the bat. That's no problem. But Ken, this guy I wrote in the NBA Buzz comment section the other night, he has the body of a Ralph Sampson, just not as muscular, and the game style and the, length of Kevin Durant, the mid-range jumper, the three-point ability to slash in the paint, and then Ralph Sampson's inside game. So he's really like an alien that the NBA's never seen before. And this is a small man's league right now. I mean, look at the Miami Heat. They did all right maintaining Nikola Jokic, but Bam Adebayo is only about 6'9", 6'10". He's not like a huge 7-footer like in the early 2000s type NBA, 90s, 80s that was always out there. So Wembanyama is going to make teams adjust every time he's on the floor. So it might not be too pretty in the win column for the Spurs just yet, but after a couple successful drafts after him, they're going to build a great young team even further than they already have right now.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, this kid Wembanyama. How much have you gotten to see of him? Did you watch any of his games over there in the postseason there in the league in France, or are you just watching highlight reels and maybe some YouTube stuff?
So it's pretty much just highlights for me of this most recent France playoff, which is leading right up to the draft that just ended like last week. But what I did see, is when they aired his team's games plural against Overtime Elite. So that was against Scoot Henderson. They had a couple good head-to-head matchups. Now he's everything as advertised, just a little inconsistent as a shooter. You know, when a 7'5" guy rises up and drains a deep three, that's the highlight. But you're not going to see him going, missing the other threes that he's jacking up from three. So he is as advertised, but like I said before, those percentages will just be lower than people will imagine.
All right, so the San Antonio Spurs, what do you expect them to do, if anything, as far as, putting some other players around him? We know Keldon Johnson, pretty solid season, led the way. Vassell as well, very solid. Devontae Graham is there. Trey Jones. I mean, talk to me about San Antonio, because they've got a lot of holes to fill. There's no question. I mean, they got up and down and put some points up towards the end of the year because they realized, might as well just see what we have, at least on the offensive side of the ball. But, next thing you know, I don't think they really thought they were going to have an opportunity to get the number one overall pick. And, sometimes with that draft lottery, things pay off, and Coach Pop probably, just tickled to know that the Spurs get that number one overall pick. And the writing's been on the wall ever since that lottery went down. We knew that Wembanyama was going to be the guy. What about any of the other components that the Spurs have in place? And do you expect them, cap-wise or otherwise, to be able to do anything to at least maybe try to get some other players around Wembanyama, free agency-wise?
Yeah, I think Devin Vassell and Keldon Johnson are two very underrated guys, especially Keldon Johnson, maybe a top 3 underrated player in the league, averaged right under 20, I believe, last season. So all the attention that's going on Victor down low and wherever he's operating will just give Keldon more opportunities. But, man, Ken, you think and everybody thinks the Grizzlies need some veterans. This Spurs team needs some veterans. I think they're projected to be the youngest team in the league next season. I know Chris Paul probably wants to ride into the sunset with a ring. The Lakers make sense. But just for this conversation, a Chris Paul-type point guard would be absolutely perfect in a 1-2 punch with Wembanyama on the pick and roll, getting him to the right spots. And, Chris Paul would be averaging like 20 assists with him. That's how crazy that would be. So a point guard along those lines, and they do have it. We spoke about Tyus Jones. His I think his twin or younger brother, whatever it is right there as a good backup point guard for them as well. So his stock might go up with Victor there. I think whoever they put in place at the point guard position, their stock is going to go up just because of the amount of assists they're going to get from Wembanyama. But they need that veteran.
Yeah, and you do have, free agents out there that'll see, but again, you got to spend some money on the kid. You want to keep him around. Guys like D'Angelo Russell and Draymond Green now going to be a free agent. Interesting to see if he gets out of the Bay. James Harden, Kyrie Irving. What's the deal with Kyrie over there at Dallas? Are they going to make sure they keep him along with Luka?
Oh my God, that's like, I don't even know what to compare that question to, because that's one of the most unknown questions known to man right now because of Kyrie's history, jumping around team to team. Does he want to stay? He'll tell the media one thing and then he does the other. This is just zero knowledge of any situation. I think nobody has that knowledge. I think he's going to stay. What other position will you get where you're teamed up with a star like Luka Doncic and some good enough weapons around you and a piece or two away from being a real title contender? I think he's got to stay, and they got to make a move for a big man. I don't think DeAndre Ayton would leave Phoenix, but he'd be that perfect big man to fit into that team.
Guys like Chris Middleton, James Harden, do you expect them to be back with their teams that Harden go back to Philly, Middleton with Milwaukee?
I think Harden is really only between Philly and Houston. Returning home to Houston, he hasn't won a ring yet. Does he really want to go play with all those kids out there who are talented, but they're not going to win? I think he probably stays. Come on, you're the point guard for the MVP right now. How do you leave that? So that's what I think about Harden. For Middleton, I just saw he opted out of his deal for $40 million, which is kind of crazy.
Right.
That's another situation. How do you leave an MVP type player like Giannis? Maybe him and Dallas makes sense, but other than that, I'm not too sure. I won't be surprised if he stays as well.
Yeah, Kyle Kuzma is another one that opted out of his deal. We know he's got offensive prowess. He could be somebody that maybe San Antonio looks to give him another guy to fill it up, maybe from the outside. I'm just, I was glancing at, free agents, and I was just trying to figure, okay, are there any pieces here that maybe San Antonio would look to add? And then you've got another guy that opted out, and that's Fred VanVleet for Toronto. He was going to get a lot of money up north of the border, but he's looking to go elsewhere as well.
That's a possibility for San Antonio. He does have that veteran leadership, still good enough. They might have to pay, but they do have money to spend. So VanVleet wants out. It's so obvious. Toronto's like in that middle of the pack spot in the Eastern Conference. And Kuzma, on the other hand, I just saw somebody reported earlier he wants $30 million a year. Now that just might be shooting high to get 20 to 24. Who knows? But I don't think the Spurs are that dumb to give a 20-point scorer on 42% field goal percentage $30 million a year. That would be a little outrageous.
Real quick, because I know the Lakers, there's been talk of Chris Paul potentially going there. But what about Rui Hachimura, who had some good games, especially in the postseason? And I feel somebody that's just coming into his own. Do the Lakers look to re-sign him, or would they let him go? Because I really think his ceiling is high. And in the right setting, I think Hachimura is going to be a big-time player.
I think so, too. But I think he stays in L.A., and gets that role he had last year and this past postseason, just on a bigger scale. Like you said, he does have the potential to be, I'd say, like a 16, 17 points per game scorer. He's like baby Kawhi Leonard out there with the mid-range. And that's something that really is in the NBA right now. He's a big body inside. I think he could take it inside more. The Lakers might not be able to pay him what he wants. So he might have to take that pay cut to be on a guaranteed playoff contender and get his stock out there like it did. I mean, he was coming off the bench in Washington. Now he's all over social media because he's dropping 15 a game off the bench for the Lakers. So, he might stick around there.
He is my good buddy Mikey Domagala. Follow him on Twitter at @officialNBABuzz. We are going to come back, keep Mikey for one more segment, and my producer, Mark Hoke. He is a big-time NBA guy. He loves his Philadelphia 76ers. We're going to all weigh in on the draft, tomorrow's NBA draft. Looking forward to it. And I'll see if Mikey can answer me some questions about them Knickerbockers. I know Mark will be weighing in on those Sixers, and we'll touch more on the NBA. Victor Wembanyama, we know he's going number 1 overall to San Antonio. The rest is going to be interesting, and we saw that one trade go down just literally minutes ago. Mikey bringing us updates there, and be interesting to see Marcus Smart there in Memphis. We are live from Vegas, KT, live at Steiner's Pub, 1750 North Buffalo, 103 in the Vegas Valley to serve you. Come on down and see me. Remember, all 3 Steiner's Pub locations, 24 hours a day. Got to be 21 and older, but full menu, 24 hours a day, and you've got the spirits, you've got the gaming, you've got it all going on with sports playing 24 hours a day. It is SportsXRadio 101.5 FM K-Dawn, streaming live on the Odyssey app. We're live from Vegas. We'll be right back. And my goodness, we got a lot of stuff going on. Mikey Domagala, my good buddy NBA Buzz, joining us. And, of course, my producer, Mark Hoke, big Sixers fan. The draft upon us. We know Wembanyama going number 1, which, sets up the Hornets for number 2. And a lot of folks thinking they're going to go with Alabama's Brandon Miller. But let's remember right here, Henderson, Nevada. How about Scoot Henderson from G League G-League Ignite right here. Had a couple-year contract there with the Ignite, and we expect him to go in the top 5. Cam Whitmore also out of Villanova, very solid. And then you got the Thompson twins. I mean, one of my favorite groups back in the day, but talking about Amen Thompson and Oscar Thompson, both very solid. Expect both those guys to go in the top 8. Jarace Walker also from Houston, Anthony Black from Arkansas. As you look over all the mock drafts around the country, those are names that you're hearing. Kason Wallace, of course, from Kentucky. You've got Taylor Hendricks from Central Florida. And then there's, a bunch of players from overseas as well that we may not be familiar with, but they could be. We talk about Wembanyama from France, but Koulibaly as well from France could be another one that goes in the top 15. So we'll see how all this transpires. But Mikey Domagala going to weigh his insight. And Mark Hoke, you got your ears on over there, pal?
I do.
All right. I know you're.
What's up?
I know. Go ahead. I was going to say, I know you're probably wondering, as far as the Sixers, what they're going to do, because I know my Knicks, once again, don't even have a first-round pick, which is par for the course for this Knickerbocker team. I did not see if Philly even had a first-round pick themselves.
Ken, we don't have a pick, period.
You don't have anything. That's right, because the Harden deal, right?
Yeah. So maybe they'll find a way to trade in, but... Yeah, I'm kicking it back and relaxing this draft, at least at the moment.
Yeah, what's your take
now with the Knicks? They don't have a pick either.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I know there's only the 2 rounds. Used to be several rounds, and we look back at some of the NBA stars from yesteryear. I mean, way back, that some of these guys weren't even thoughts and just ended up being picked, and some of them are just incredible success stories, how they made it with their tenacity to and perseverance to make a name for themselves in the league. But guys, let's weigh in on numbers 2 through 5. And Mikey, started off, what about Brandon Miller from Alabama? Is that indeed where you think Charlotte will go? Or what about Scoot Henderson, Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore, a very solid player for Villanova, a nice big guy. So just wondering where you're thinking that Charlotte's looking. And, of course, we know Michael Jordan no longer in the picture as far as the ownership.
He is one last time tomorrow night. GM Mitch Kupchak said the deal is still in works, so MJ is going to make his last draft year. So, man, is he going to set this team up for success, or is he going to make a move that's kind of reflective of what his last 10 to 13 years have been with the franchise? I think he's going to take Brandon Miller. I think he's the 3rd best player in this draft, but the best fit outside of Wembanyama for that team. They don't need another guard next to LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, or that would be Scoot Henderson. I think they're going to go Miller, 6'9", like a Paul George type of guy, shooter, defender. I think they can't make that mistake. They can't take Scoot and kind of bury him behind LaMelo. That being said, I think Scoot goes number 3 to Portland if they don't trade that pick. So it's going to be interesting tomorrow night.
Yeah, Mark, what's your take as far as Portland? I mean, Dame Lillard saying that he wants to stay in Portland, but, that's all well and good until you look at your roster and you say, wow, we don't have a prayer to win in the next couple of years. But someone like Scoot Henderson could be at least another player, but they've got so much work to do on that roster, just to make it postseason worthy. You think they deal that number 3 and maybe their other first-round pick in order to maybe set up some type of veteran sort, or at least give Dame, a Robin to the Batman theme?
Yeah, actually, I wouldn't be shocked if that happens. There's been a lot of trade rumors going around with Portland, and if you're trying to get some people around Lillard, get them around Lillard, you're not going to do it with a young guy. It's just not going to happen, Ken. So I really think they're good chance they're going to make a move. I really do.
Mikey, as far as the Detroit Pistons, they picked number 5. My good buddy Chris Wynn is listening in, and he goes, it's a travesty that we're picking at number 5, but what are we looking at as far as to complement this Pistons roster? Are they going to grab one of the Thompson twins? You see Cam Whitmore. I know it depends on what is taken in front of them, but what's your take as far as Detroit as they look to bolster their roster?
Well, we know they have a ton of setters, so they're definitely not going to take Anthony Black. I think they're going to have to go with one of the twins, whether Asar or Amen. It's like they're like looking at each other in the mirror physically and how their games are. So I can't even say much between them other than they have the same game between them. So they're going to go with one of the twins.
All right, that's I've seen that on several mock drafts, just depending on who's going to be left there as far as the number 5 pick. So we'll wait and see how all this transpires. Looking forward to it again as a Knicks fan, or as with Mark as a Sixer fan, knowing you're not even getting a pick in the first couple rounds kind of takes the luster off watching the NBA draft. But it is interesting to see where some of this talent is going to be going. You've got Brooklyn. The draft is in Brooklyn at the Barclays Center, and Brooklyn's got back-to-back picks at number 21 and 22. And it'll be interesting to see if Sacramento gets a crack at getting Chris Murray, or whether or not he's going to be taken. I'm just wondering, Brooklyn, back-to-back picks, they need a lot of help as well. They made that, the deal late in the season, but, they've got a nice nucleus of players. They made the postseason, got knocked out, but still, there's a pretty good nucleus there with Brooklyn. What do you expect the Nets to do, Mikey D?
I think they might go after that kid from France. I'm looking at the mock draft now, that Rain Rupert guy. He's, that 6'7", big body, could shoot. I don't know if he played with Wembanyama, but I'm sure they came up the ranks together. But Brooklyn does need to hit on at least one or two of those because they need that other scoring option. Mikal Bridges, he's good. Cam Johnson's good. They need another scorer on that team. And you mentioned Chris Murray. Looking at this draft board right now, there's 3 contending teams in Los Angeles, Miami, Brooklyn, we could say, and Golden State in that 17 to 23 range who could use Chris Murray, just like a straight dead-on shooter like his brother, and just that big forward at the wing who could spot up and create for himself.
Yeah, you think there's a chance that Chris Murray would be left at number 24 for Sacramento if they could pair him with Keegan, his brother? I know they played together at Iowa, and I know they'd love that opportunity, but a lot of the mock drafts I'm looking at, Chris Murray's going like slightly before that, whether Brooklyn grabs him or maybe one of the other teams right there in the mix. He's a southpaw and can shoot the ball pretty well. Not as athletic as his brother, at least early on, but he's, those two have always played together, and they played together at Iowa, and they were pretty good pieces together on the floor together. So I'm sure Keegan's, kind of tugging at the strings there of Sacramento brass, saying, "Hey, give my brother a chance. I promise you'll get a guy that's got great work ethic."
Yeah, I'm not sure he falls for them because I see projected to Portland, number 23, Jamie Jaquez from UCLA. We saw him on the biggest stage. Personally,
Jaime Jaquez, baby. Jaime Jaquez Jr., man. That boy can flat out play, man.
I was going to say, the possibility is there for him to fall because there's guys behind him who might be better than him. Because Chris Murray, I feel like a lot of it, as good as he is, as good as he could shoot, some clout is because of his brother. So he might fall a little bit.
Mark Hoke, weigh in a little bit on the draft, man, with Mikey D.
Yeah, Mike, I'm curious. Is there anybody that you're looking at in the late rounds that could be a steal here? Because it seems to me this year there's a lot of pretty good players, but other than your top pick, there's it's kind of okay. Who do you see as someone that could be maybe a late round steal for somebody, or maybe someone that's coming in here pretty underrated?
Yeah, no, I agree with you because it does seem pretty top heavy. After, say, pick 12, it starts kind of falling off a little bit. Amoni Bates, he's projected 52nd. There is no way that dude is a late second-round pick. And I'd say the same with Amari Bailey, who's from UCLA. He is a little undersized, but lefty, absolutely great slasher. I'd say along the lines of an R.J. Barrett type of guy. Both slated for the second round. I think Bates is a first-round talent. I think even Bailey is, too, just a little undersized, like what I said. Bates had that gun charge. He said he just had it for protection in his car. Some other issues personally, but, man, that kid stepping on the floor, that is not a 50 to 60 range player. He's gonna go, I'd say, top 35. I think a team in that range is going to see him, see his work ethic, see his body type and his style, and they're just gonna try it. They're just gonna go for him.
Mikey, your take on the Thompson twins. Clue people in a little bit, because I know you follow the G League a little bit more than I do. Eamon Thompson and Oscar Thompson, the twins, projected to go anywhere from 3 through 8, both of them being picked in the top 8. What do they bring to the NBA? And what do you expect as far as their prowess? Like right away, are they going to be impact players because they do have this G League experience? And a lot of folks saying, look, we don't know much about the G League. What is it in comparison to playing, top-notch college ball, say at a Kansas or a Duke?
Yeah, I mean, both of them are still so young, but they're very similar players. So they're big guards. They're about 6'6", 6'7". They run the point, run the 2. Definitely much more of a facilitator than a shooter. I would call them a scorer of the fact that it's in the mid-range, slashing inside, laying it up, little baby hooks, rather than their jumper. Now, that's not the end of the world. Kids have to develop their jumpers. Once they get on these teams, they got their shooting coaches. There's lethal shooter out there that these players, train with for their jumper. But these two are extremely athletic and have a knack for playmaking. That jumper is just lagging a little bit, but I think they're impact players. I could see them having the impact. Let's see. Well, Bones Highland's a good shooter, but two guys like that, more athletic than Bones, bigger than him, but instant impact, instant intensity, athleticism kind of guys who could steal the ball a couple times, get on the fast break and score that way, even if they're not finding the jumper. So they're playmaking facilitators, those two.
Jarace Walker, another guy from Houston. A lot of people looking forward to seeing where he's going. I've seen several mock drafts have him going to the Indiana Pacers at number 7. Cam Whitmore, a big-time big guy for Villanova. And, that's the thing. You're starting to look at teams now where you really went away from the center, but with Jokic and his size and that he extends the floor the way he does by stepping outside, teams know they're going to need some height. When you look at, the way Miami had to go, and Bam Adebayo playing, again, he's a 6'9" guy. So, you're just looking at teams now starting to say, hey, maybe the big guy's not out of the game. I know a lot of the teams were going small ball or smaller ball, actually, than we've seen in years past. But I think Denver may have changed that. And if you got to combat Denver, if they're indeed the team to beat, you're going to have some big bodies out there. And we saw when teams didn't have those big bodies, like a Phoenix Suns, they ran into a lot of trouble there. And we're just up against it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. What about Drew Timme? Does he get in the second round? Is he somebody out of Gonzaga that you can see being grabbed? We know how well he played college ball for Gonzaga and Mark Few for all those years. It's just going to be weird to see him out of Spokane. But what about Drew Timme? My buddy Chris Wynn thinks he could be a sleeper in the second round.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just look at Nikola Jokic. They got him, I believe it was 42nd in that draft. Just the guy at that time who just had skills. Jokic's body wasn't jumping off the charts. His athleticism, physicality, nothing was jumping off the charts, but he had the skill, the post moves, all of that, even as a young player. That's what I see in Drew Timme. I mean, bona fide guy who's been around a while, a long time for a guy coming in the NBA, but his post moves is outstanding. His little mid-range, outstanding. Is he really a guy who's going to be in the G League? I think he's too skilled for it. I think he could be a guy off the bench averaging 7 or 8 points with just mid-range jumpers or his post moves inside, a guy who could rebound the ball a little bit. I would take him. If I see him hanging around in the 40s or the 50s of this draft, that's another guy who, just knowing his background, you got to have him on your team. He's a winner, and he's skilled. Nikola Jokic is proving that body could make an impact in this league.
Mikey, one other thing I wanted to ask you, because Marcus Smart is going to Memphis now, and initially it was thought Malcolm Brogdon was going to be going to L.A., but they have Brogdon. They still have Derek White. I know Peyton Pritchard was unhappy with his playing time, and I would be as well. I mean, he didn't average anything really, just under 6 minutes in the postseason, but when he was called upon, whenever he was called upon, he always seemed to deliver. He's somebody, and Mark and I, old school guys, but, you remember back to the microwave, Vinnie Johnson step off the bench and be able to knock down threes right away, and you go like, how could the guy do that? Just step right on the court and be able to do that. Peyton Pritchard has that ability to me, somebody that comes in that you would think he'd be ice cold, but he'll knock down 2 of 2 from 3 in 6 minutes. I mean, he's got that type of capability. Do you think with Marcus Smart going to Memphis that Pritchard leaves it on the table, that he still wants out of Boston?
That's a great observation. And you just gave me an idea for an NBA Buzz post later tonight, because you're right. Pritchard on any other team is a capable backup point guard who could produce. Like you said, he comes in and nails his threes. Kind of scrappy, getting inside, decent facilitator, like good enough for a backup point guard role. I do think he would slide up and get some more minutes. Is he going to opt out? It's tough. He's on a winning team, and he sees that a role is opening up ahead of him. I can see him staying, but definitely deserving of being a piece somewhere else. That's tough because he has voiced his frustrations, like you said. I think he stays. And I think Boston lucked out. I mean, Marcus Smart, Defensive Player of the Year a couple years ago, but Derek White is that dude as well. Great defender, all-NBA defensive guy. He's just going to slide up and give Pritchard his minutes.
Yeah, and then we'll find out how Malcolm Brogdon comes back from the shoulder injury, a concern that the L.A. Clippers had, and potentially why that deal did not go down earlier today. Mikey Domagala, let everybody know how they can find you, how they can read all the great stuff that you write, and how they can follow you as well, my man.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Follow NBA Buzz on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and every platform there is. You could follow also Inside Buzz on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts for all podcasts with NBA players, NBA personnel. I have, my most recent interview was with Ty Lawson and Raymond Felton, 2 very good point guards of the 2000s, 2010s. So you can listen to the great stories of their NBA battles with Westbrook and Steph Curry in those. And yeah, just follow NBA Buzz on all platforms, and all interviews and all top trades and rumors and free agency starting soon will be on there, as well as the NBA draft tomorrow night.
Yeah, a couple solid Tar Heels, man, no doubt. Good stuff, Mikey D. Hey, are you going to make it out for the Summer League by chance?
I'm still waiting to get in contact with the guy. They're opening up media next week, I heard. It's going to be, a tight little thing of like a 10-day notice, but that's the NBA for you. So I'll be in touch if I am, Ken. I'm definitely trying to get out there.
All right, well, I got the contact for the media credentials today. Talked to Warren Ligari, so I've got the lady to contact, and we'll get in touch and maybe put in those credentials tomorrow, or I'll find out exactly where that portal is. But, of course, it's right here in my backyard, and I'll look forward to seeing you out here if we can get you credentialed. I see no reason why we won't, and be great to see you in person and hang out, my man.
Well, Ken, I appreciate you having me on, and listen, I'll be in touch in a couple minutes. I appreciate
You got it, buddy. Great stuff. Mikey Domagala, my buddy, NBA Buzz. My producer, Mark Hoke, he and I will come back. We'll wrap the show up. I'm over here, Steiner's Pub, 1750 North Buffalo. He's back at the PSBR Law Studios. We'll wrap things up on SportsX Radio, 101.5 FM KDAWN, streaming live on that Odyssey app, AUDACY. You don't forget, we've got the rewind feature. You miss any parts of SportsX Radio, you can go back and rewind it, or you can pick up the archives. They'll be pinned at 2 handles on Twitter, at Ken Thompson 87, at SportsX Radio by 11 o'clock Pacific time. Live from Vegas, live at Steiner's. It is SportsX Radio. I'm Ken Thompson. I'll be back with my producer, Mark Hoke, to wrap things up on a Wednesday night. It is Hump Day, live at Steiner's. Coming right back at you.